I will then proceed to introducing our teacher today, Ayo, and then it will get started. I'm particularly very interested in product management, so I'm one of the students today. So it's not something that I have done in the past. I've had good experience in project management, so I'm looking forward to really learning from you, Ayo. And thank you for accepting to lead us through these classes. As everyone may know, my name is Dr. Adiola Olubamiji. I go by Dr. Adi. I am the founder of Stemhope Foundation, and Stemhope is a Canadian charity organization which really focuses on some of the things I'll be talking about today. And we are thrilled to have one of the, the leaders in this industry to lead us over a 3-day product management class. And I want you to know that before we got such a person to work with us on this, Ayo came through a referral from someone who is another leader who felt like Ayo is the right person to lead this for us. As you come in, please be respectful of him by muting yourself on entering into the classrooms on the 3 occasions that we will interact with him. And we want to make sure that you are getting the value for everything, right, from this program. Yeah, as you know, we pay honorarium to the teachers who lead these classes, but that is not the worth of their expertise. But we want to make sure that within the Black community, within the minority community, within the Asian community, Hispanic community, and also, of course, the Aboriginal community, that we are spreading the good news of technology, skill acquisition, so that our people can really get the economic power that we have been in the back of it for so long. So let's talk a bit about STEMHub and why we do what we do. Why does STEM matters to us? We believe that in the next 10 years, non-STEM jobs will grow by 9.8%, but STEM jobs will grow by almost 18%. And if there is growth in the number of jobs available, having people with the right skills to be able to compete for those jobs now become very important. And this is why we feel like this is why we STEM. In 2018 alone, Canada's 10 most in-demand jobs require STEM degrees. Isn't that interesting? In just 1 year, we saw that, every new job that is coming up is requiring that somebody has a degree in engineering, science, or maybe mathematics or some technology. And this is, again, why we STEM. The number 3 reason, among all of the other reasons, is in the last 30 years, we have seen that in Canada, we've only had 2% increase in number of women in STEM. We went from 20% to 22%. Imagine if they really say equality is the order of the day, and we're still trying to go from 20% to 22% over a 30-year period. When then do we achieve equality? When then are we going to be able to have the same amount of women, in STEM as men? Canada took 30 years to move 2 points up, and we want to join the fight to make sure that equality, whether it is gender-based, whether it is racial-based, that equality is taken care of. And this, again, is why we STEM. And this is why STEM matters. In 2017, Stemhope started as a non-for-profit organization. And it started when myself and a few other engineers came together and said, hey, let's give back to our community and not just keep waiting for handouts for other races to come and help solve the problem within our community, and not keep pointing fingers and saying, hey, yeah, we're feeling cheated, we're feeling ignored. Let's start our own thing where we take care of our own communities and really help our people become better. Why is this important? Over the years, we have noticed that when immigrants, when minorities, when they become better, they leave where they grow up. They leave the ghetto, then they move to the upper class, high-end areas. And usually they're no longer physically connected to those areas, and they're not really inspiring the people. They're not joining forces with the people to really help them get better. Yes, we don't have a choice than to leave the ghetto neighborhoods. We have to do that. But how then can we support our community so that we can raise more leaders from that ghetto, so that we can be inspirations to those people? So we came together and decided that we wanted to help our community. And here are some things I want you to know about Stemhope Foundation. Through STEM, we aim to increase accessibility to practical and quality STEM programs that may be hard to access by underserved and low-income communities within Ontario, Canada. We believe that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics exposure and increase scientific and technology literacy will equip Canadian youths to confidently pursue STEM studies and careers. In the beginning of our execution, we started with young people, but over the years, we have realized that starting with young people is not enough. We have to also reskill and upskill the professionals so that we don't really end up with professionals who are struggling, but they are already experienced, or who are left behind because of new skills that we are experiencing. So moving forward, there are 4 programs that we do as Stemhub Foundation that covers these 4 objectives. Our 4 objectives within our organization is to ensure that we have free, creative, hands-on, and team-based workshops for youths from grade 2 to 12 from underserved geographical location in Ontario, Canada. The second one is to provide hands-on development industry 4.0 focused training, such as this one we are having, to make sure we provide this to university students, graduates, and professionals who are hoping to upskill their portfolio with industry 4.0 focused skills. Number 3 is the provisions of scholarships based on academic achievement to youths from underserved and under-resourced area within Canada. Then the number 4 is to make sure that we are tackling unemployment through job-based workshops and one-on-one mentoring. And we do this following these 4 programs that we have. STEM Scholars is our program that focuses on really helping us provide scholarships to people from underserved communities who might have difficulties paying their own tuition. Currently, we have 2 scholars who are going to universities in Canada that we are sponsoring their academic year. So we are paying their tuition for 2020 and 2021. STEMing is our hands-on program for young people from grade 2 to grade 12, and we provide this also for free. The STEM skills program is Tech Masterclass is a subset of the STEM skills program, where we focus on professionals, graduates, and also undergraduates who are interested in building competitive Industry 4.0 skills so that their portfolio would be highly competitive, whether during trying to get their first job or trying to upskill so that they can bid on new roles, or really just trying to do their job better. The STEM Stars program is our mentorship program where we connect industry professionals, industry leaders with people who are trying to find the right mentors who would help them to really move their career forwards. And let me tell you a very nice gist about STEM Stars. Yesterday, this program matched me with a CEO of a tech company in Toronto as my new mentor. And that is one of the things that we do. So this year, STEM Stars has matched 20 professionals with leading professionals in the industries, with the hope that we can help minority youths really climb the ladder. Can you imagine the effect of having a busy CEO as my mentor, now responsible for my growth for the next 1 year? And I'm telling you, from the first email where we started talking, is already putting fire in my butt, asking me questions about, when I want to meet, what my career aspirations are. This is really why we are here, to provide access to people that on a normal day you would not have access to. Not only access, to provide opportunities to make sure that our people are linked to the right opportunities, then to provide those scholarships that is required for you to go through schools without paying anything. And lastly, to catch them young. Every young person will have opportunity to hear about STEM education once they come in contact with us. And today, so this is not the focus for today, but we wanted to introduce you to some of the programs we have. Just in case you're interested, this is how our team looks like right now. We have 25 facilitators focusing on the STEMing, 8 social media and digital media experts really helping us spread the news on social media. We have people creating curriculums for the youths when they take their program. We have 3 people on our IT team, and the STEM program planning team are the ones that work on this tech master classes. This is the place where I belong. And we have the communication team, the grant writing team. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'd see how much I keep promoting the support we are getting from either BPTM or the government of Canada or the government of Ontario. People are stepping up to help us because we write those grants, and we have two people managing the money we spend. We're a charity organization, so it is very important that we stay accountable to the public. We show yearly what we use the money we're given for. We show what we have done within a year. So this team is responsible for doing all that. If you're interested in volunteering with us, we are just building our HR department right now. If anyone is on here, you live in Canada or the US or somewhere else, you're interested in contributing to our HR department that is growing, please reach out to us. Our information is available, I think, via email. We've been emailing you. Please email us back and let us know if you're interested in that. We are also growing our legal and evaluation team. So if you're interested, you're a lawyer here, you're based in Canada, you want to volunteer, we can use your help with evaluation and making sure all the contracts we're getting ourselves into are checked on properly. Without further ado, now I want to read the bio of our speaker today. I will stop sharing the screen and bring up another one. Just a second.
Hello, doctor. Hello. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay.
Can I be a student ambassador for Stemhope Foundation?
You can email us about that and we can see whether there's a possibility for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm very thrilled to introduce to us today our teacher, Ayobami Ayodeji. Ayobami Ayodeji is a technical program manager at Microsoft, where he works to ensure Microsoft Azure customers have the best customer experience. Prior to that, he worked as a project manager at Magna and as a data scientist at TD. Is also the product lead at Black Mint, a non-for-profit organization that helps Black middle high school students kickstart their careers in the tech industry. Aya is a certified project management professional with a master's degree in engineering from University of Toronto. Please join me to welcome Aya. Aya, we're ready whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction and for introducing what your organization does. I think it's amazing and I think it's really, really important. And I definitely wasn't expecting to see this many people, like over 80 people. That's like amazing. So great job to STEMHub and STEMHub marketing team for being able to get this many people. I'm really happy and really humbled and honored to be here. I hope you guys are excited about this because, product management is a very exciting field. And I know you're definitely going to learn a lot over the 3 days of this class. So just to start, I want to make this a little bit interactive at the beginning. So I'm looking for 3 brave people to raise up their hand and give a quick introduction about themselves for 1 minute. So who's going to be the first person?
Hiya, before you go on, I want to acknowledge other people from STEMHub who are here coordinating the program. So we have Sab. Sab is the project manager, and he's been the one, is the one who let you in and let everybody in. Is our lead project manager who makes sure that this program runs effectively. We also have Dashan. So Dashan is another person who is another project manager who has been the first person interacting with you on contracts and stuff like that. He was the lead person last year and he's always still here leading and supporting. And we have one of our directors here, Mr. Bimbola Olujide from Shell. And he is one of the directors also leading this tech masterclass. You didn't hear from him too much because he just makes sure all the work we're doing is great. I'm not sure if there are other people, but I feel like those 3 people deserve to be acknowledged. Now,
That's awesome.
I wanted to say that, STEMHub is based in Canada, is based in Ontario. But because of digitization and the ability to share stuff on WebEx and on Zoom, we have extended this program to other parts of the world. So you would be seeing people from maybe India, from Nigeria, from different places, because we feel like with digitization, it doesn't only have to encompass Canadians, that we could definitely reach out and spread the news. And that's why we have a lot of audience, because if we had closed the gap and say it's only Canadians, of what benefit it is if it's not costing us anything to spread the news around. Well, that's it, and you can keep going. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Awesome. So first person I would like to ask to unmute themselves is, oh, I think she disappeared. Wow, where did you go? Okay, so I guess we're gonna go with um we're gonna go with Martha. I think she was the first person to raise up her hand. So Martha, I wanted to tell everyone about yourself.
Hi.
Oh, and also, can you turn on your camera if you don't mind?
Oh, I do mind. I'm actually not in a place that is convenient for me to do that. I hope that's okay.
Fine. That's fine.
All right. Hi. Good afternoon. It's afternoon over here. My name is Dolapo Martha Abakusi. I'm a recent graduate from the Nigerian Law School, looking to transition into product management. So pretty much since my graduation till now, I've just been looking for opportunities to upskill, take classes, learn as much as I can about product management, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. So why are you looking to transition? I think you just studied law. Why are you looking to transition from law to product management?
Okay, thank you. So for me, doing law was pretty much fulfilling obligation. Blankly, it was because that was what my parents encouraged me to do. And so during the course of my study in university up until law school, I realized that the skills that I was more interested in, right, were more towards project management. So my research started with project management, learning about it, taking classes, getting certificates and all that. And then I discovered product, and I just want to explore it and see how well I can do.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Okay, next person, Olaide. Oh, no problem. Thanks for sharing that, actually. Olaide, do you mind turning on your camera and introducing yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. Olaide from Ilorin, Nigeria. I am a postgraduate student of at Lautech University, in Nigeria. Yeah, hoping that I'm starting a startup that's solving issue in the agricultural value chain. But I discovered that product development is key, and I need to learn and relearn so that I can build a competitive position that can be acceptable not only in Nigeria but I'm here to learn. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you're definitely going to learn a lot. I think product management, learning the skills of product management it's not only product managers that need those skills, but there's a lot of things that come into product development and understanding the business and understanding how to satisfy customers that you can actually learn from product management that would help you with multiple different careers. So welcome, Alaide. Third person, Ores Sonia Ade something. Sorry, it's like it's got a dot thing. Ores Sonia, do you wanna turn on your camera? Awesome.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi.
Okay, the name is Oresanya Ademola. Yeah, I'm connecting from Nigeria. Actually, I'm a banker. I worked for some time in banking, and though my background is science, but I was able to switch, into the banking industry. A few weeks ago, I came across someone on the internet who is a product manager and says he is into product management. And I was wondering, I've always heard of project management. So when I had this product management, one of the things that he said that actually made me curious was that He's actually staying in Nigeria, and has full-time employment with two companies abroad, and a part-time employment with another company. So he was actually working with three companies abroad, and yet he's currently in Nigeria. So it got me curious. What is product management? I think that's one of the reason I joined this masterclass.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks for introducing yourself. So David, I'm sure you have a chance to participate in the future, but I think we'll just keep things moving. I wanted to have a better idea of who's on the call and who's just to understand how to tailor this program. But anyways, back to the main discussion. I'm gonna go ahead and share my slides. So share my slide. Oops. Wrong slide. Sorry about that. Okay. Awesome. Sorry, I usually use Teams, not Zoom, so just trying to get used to it. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so this
I'll
course.
be here, but my video is off, and you have
Okay.
all of us here. So if you have any technical difficulties or anything like that, we'll be here to support you. But our videos may be off because we want you to be in charge.
Actually, yeah. So that's actually one of the first things I wanted to say. So welcome to the course. This is basically Introduction to Product Management, to give people an idea of what product management is about. Today, we're going to be starting with understanding product management. This is the first class out of 3. I can't really see the chat, so if you have any questions, maybe, I don't know. Actually, maybe we'll just wait because there's so many people. We'll just wait until the question times, and then I'll go over them. So before we start, there's a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, if you want to get the best out of this course, there's a small practical part to it. So basically, everyone will be participating in a project, or anyone who's interested can participate in a project. It's a very simple project or a very basic project. And the idea is to complete some of the first steps of developing a product as a product manager. So I would encourage everyone to participate in that. Hopefully through that experience, you would actually learn something new, something practical that you can actually take to, future endeavors. That's the first thing. The second one is I would like to encourage everyone to, as many people as possible, as much as you can, turn on your camera. The reason why I say that is because it helps with concentration when you have a camera on. You don't have to, just a suggestion. So that's it with that. So if you can turn on your camera, I would encourage you to do that. The third one, what's the third one? Yeah, the third one is a really important topic, I think, that generally doesn't really get taught in school. It's around mindset, right? So whenever I try to teach people something or leading a project or something, I feel like one of the most important things when it comes to trying to learn something or trying to take on a new challenge is to have the right mindset. Because without the right mindset, you can't really do anything, right? So there's 2 types of people. There's people with the growth mindset and there's people with the fixed mindset. People with the fixed mindset believe that their level of smartness is fixed and there's only certain things that they can do and they're really good at, and that's it. People with the growth mindset believe that every experience is an opportunity to learn, right? So if you really believe that you have the right mindset or you have the right personality to do a certain task, there's nothing stopping you from trying. There's nothing stopping you from believing in yourself, having the right mindset, paying attention, and actually getting it done. Because as as you mentioned earlier, I've actually gone through a couple of career transitions. I started out as an engineer working in one of the big car companies here, and that was a great experience. But then I decided I wanted to do something different. So I did project management, and that was fun. When I was like, okay, how about data science? And then I did that. So basically, what I'm trying to say is having the right mindset really, really help you, can really, really help you, be successful and do a lot of really cool stuff that you probably never thought that you could do. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and start the course officially. We have a lot of material to go over today. We're going to be starting with what is product management? I know that's a big question. What is product management? So we're going to be going into that in detail. The next one, what is the product development cycle, as well as the product life cycle? We're going to talk about lean product management. We're going to talk about finding and defining user problems, because that's what product management is all about, right? I think someone mentioned that they wanted to start agricultural organization. That was Olaide. Well, you need to be able to understand what the problems are, right? What is your business going to solve? What problem is the business going to solve? So being able to understand and define user problems would actually guide the direction of the product that you're trying to build to help solve that problem. And the last one is I'm just going to talk about introduction to the project. And then the idea is everyone actually gets some of the work done over the next week, and then we go from there. We'll build on top of that. So what is product management? Well, product management is basically an intersection of technology. And this course will actually focusing on software product management. There's a lot of different types of product management, but for this course, we're talking about software product management. So product management is basically an intersection of these three disciplines. So you need to work with UX designers, for example, because whatever product you're trying to build has to have a really good user experience. So user experience includes the user interface. What does it look like? What are some of the things that the users actually have to go through? What do they have to experience as they interact with your product? So that could include, for example, going into the mall, going into the store that actually has the tech products that you're trying to buy. That experience, having the right customer service to guide you through making that decision is part of the experience. So you need to understand the UX, the user experience. You need to understand the business. Whatever product you're making, no matter how much it fits with customer needs, if it doesn't align with your company's goals, it's probably not going to be successful. And then also there's the tech side. To build a product, you need to have engineers build the product, right? So product management basically brings in these three parts to build a product. One of the first things you need to understand about product management is that no one actually reports to you, right? You're going to be working in a multi-functional team. You're going to be working with engineers. You're going to be working with designers, business leaders, the executives. You're going to be working with the marketing department, but no one actually reports to you. But then when you think about it, why is it that no one reports to the product manager? Well, think about it. You need to have an environment where people can actually speak freely and actually give their opinion on what they think is the direction of the product, or what do they think of the current direction? What do they think of some of the ideas that the team is working on? You need people to be able to speak freely. If these engineers or these designers report to you and you're their boss, do you really think they can give you honest feedback? It's more difficult, right? Like no one really wants to criticize what the boss is doing. But when the product manager is not their boss, they can actually be like, no, I don't think we can do it this way, or I don't think we should do it this way, right? So they have a better chance of challenging you, which should actually help you learn. As a product manager, it's not your job to be the smartest person in the room. You're not the person that has come up with all of the ideas. Your job is to enable, to organize the product team. Your job is to prioritize Your job is to present to executives, to customers, and so on. But you don't have to be the idea person. Also, you're responsible for the ultimate success of the product. So in a nutshell, that's what product management is about. So now that I talked about product management, what is a product, right? So product can be anything, right? It could be software, could be hardware. In this course, we're probably going to be focusing on tech-related products. So to the top right is a laptop. So that's the Windows Surface laptop. So that's a physical hardware. That's an example of a product. And at Microsoft, we have product managers that are responsible for the computer hardware, the development of this computer hardware. To the top left, I don't think anyone really knows what that is, but that's one of the software products used on Microsoft Cloud Platform. I'm not sure how many people are actually familiar with the concept of the cloud, but basically, cloud technology allows you to borrow someone else's computer. So, for example, when you have, say, you have your iPhone and you have pictures in your iPhone, and the pictures get stored on the cloud, or you're able to see your pictures from your iPhone on your laptop, on your iMac. That's an example of using the cloud, because those pictures don't only get stored on your phone, they also get stored on the cloud. So that's basically Apple's computer storing your pictures. So one of the products, the one to the top left, is one of the cloud products that are used by Microsoft customers to help them build better products. To the bottom right is an application, right? So when you think of product, I think that's probably the first thing you think of, a software application. For example, the iMessage. So a product manager is responsible for the iMessage, right? But the thing is, iMessage is such a huge product used by so many people and has so many different features that you can't just have one product manager take care of the whole of the iMessage application. You have multiple product managers working on different parts. And that leads me to the picture to the bottom left. So what I'm showing is Instagram story feature. So you have Instagram, which is a product, which is an application, but within that, you have multiple different features, right? You have a feature that allows you to add people. You have a feature that allows you to view the pictures. You have a feature that allows you to send messages to people. And you have a feature that allows you to post stories on your Instagram. So the feature, which is Instagram stories itself, is a product. And at Facebook, there's actually a product manager who's responsible for that particular feature. So next up, now that we've talked about what is a product, I want to briefly talk about different types of product managers, right? So we have the internal product managers, we have consumer product managers, and we have business-to-business product managers. There's other types of product managers, but I think these are basically the main ones. So I hope people are not are not confused. But basically, what separates these three different types of product managers are actually the stakeholders that they serve, right? So, for example, for the internal product managers, they basically make software for the organization, right? So within an organization, there's lots of software that the organization uses. For example, some organizations use they have databases, right? So all the company's data needs to get stored somewhere. So the internal product managers are responsible for building, for example, the software that are used by the employees to analyze data, to understand customers, to get the jobs done, right? Maybe they have software that allows them to make PowerPoint presentations, for example, right? So you could probably use PowerPoint, or maybe some organizations have PowerPoint integrated with a different software. So building that kind of software requires a development team. And to lead this development team to take care of this product, you have internal product managers. So like for example, other examples could be a tool that authenticates employees into the company system or the internal software. They build API software for developers. Dashboards, like I mentioned before. So basically, the main stakeholders for internal PMs is the internal employees. The business-to-business product managers work on products whose clients are other companies, right? So, for example, Oracle, Salesforce, Microsoft, for example. So that's actually the type of product manager that I am, because I'm responsible for products that serve other businesses, not actual customers. Well, when I say customers, I mean like end users. So their stakeholders are other companies that would, so they have to talk to sales team a lot. They have to talk to the corporate executive, their CEOs. They also have to talk to the customer companies, right? So the clients. It requires them to be very resourceful and understand how the businesses operate. So say you're building software for multiple businesses, you need to be able to figure out what kind of features are the most businesses looking for and prioritize that, and also come up with creative solutions to build the best product for these businesses. So they're trying to maximize metrics like consumption, which is basically getting more and more customers to use your product. The more they use it, the more money your organization makes. Licensing sign up. So for example, with Microsoft Office, the more people actually get the licenses, or Microsoft Windows for organizations, the more people that get the licenses, the more money Microsoft makes, for example. So those are some of the things that they try to maximize. They also try to get companies to sign long-term contracts. So you can be like, oh, so I'm going to get this license and it'll last for the next year. So you know for sure for the next year, you have guaranteed revenue. The third type of PM is business to customer PM. This is the most common type of PMs. It's also the most flexible, right? So for example, they make products like video games. You think of Google, you think of iPhones, you think of Android phones. Their roles usually require a lot of creativity and imagination to try to optimize, metrics like usage. So for example, Facebook or Instagram PMs, they need to figure out what do people actually need to spend more time on Instagram. How do we get more people to spend more time on Instagram? Because the more time you spend on Instagram, the more ad revenue Facebook actually gets. So that's basically what they try to focus on. So with business to business that I mentioned before, salespeople can help product managers understand what the customers need, what the big clients are looking for, and how the companies are structured, exactly how much money they can make if certain features are made. So for example, if you have 10 big organizations that need this feature, and if you have this feature, they would actually sign up buy maybe 10,000 more licenses, and that's exactly this amount of money your organization is going to make. Then it's really, really easy to prioritize which features you're going to build. But when you think about an organization like Facebook, right, it's very difficult to know how much you would make. It's very difficult to know how much impact this feature is going to make. So with the customer PMs, you have to be really creative. You have to be really good at understanding the users to prioritize which features to actually build. So some PMs can do both. For example, like the Surface Laptop PMs that I mentioned before, they build product for both consumers, because you have regular people buying laptops, but also for companies, because you have organizations buying laptops as well, right? So some PMs are actually a mix of the two different types of PMs. Okay, so question, I guess the big question now is, what type of PM should you go for, right? I just mentioned 3 different options. Which one should you go for? Well, for the internal PM, they're actually best for new, people that are new into PMs, because their customers are within the organization. It's really easy to get your coworkers to give you feedback on the product, to tell you what they need to get the jobs done. You already understand the business process within your organization, so it's much easier to actually build those products. It will also help you learn a lot about technology, because you're going to be using a lot of internal tools that need to integrate with existing systems, right? So you have an organization, you need to build a new tool that integrates with that system. You're going to have to learn a lot about the technology. So it's a really, really good starting position. So some of these tools could be like marketing tools, right? You might be building some tools that actually connect to the marketing tool, the CRM tool, data analytics tool, and so on. Also for the business to business PM is also great for new entrants. It's a little bit more complicated than the internal. You know, definitely have more customers to deal with than the internal customers. It's more flexible and creative because you need to understand, okay, so these are all of my customers. I need to be able to figure out what the highest common factor is and actually prioritize those features. It's prioritized based on how much money this feature would bring. So your customers would actually say, if you build this feature, I would sign up for this license. You can actually tell this is how much we're going to make if we're able to build this product. On the other hand, they have very tight deadlines, right? Facebook users are not worried about when a new feature is going to come up. So their deadlines are not as crazy as B2B customers, PM customers, because B2B customers, they want that feature now, right? These big organizations, they want this feature now. If you don't get this feature now, they're going to go to the competitor. So there's a lot of pressure, lots of tight deadlines. And then also you get to deal with a bigger proportion of the product. So you might actually own the entire product as opposed to a Facebook PM or Instagram PM who's only responsible for a small feature within that. For the business to customer, like I mentioned before, it's the most challenging because there's a lot of ambiguity. It's really, really difficult to know what to prioritize. There's a lot of uncertainty. You have millions of people. You can imagine Facebook. There's billions of people using Facebook. How do you know what customers actually want? It's very, very difficult. You have different customers who need different things. How do you prioritize, right? So they have to do extensive user testing to help prioritize some of the stuff that you're doing. So I've talked a lot about product management. I hope everyone is having a good understanding of what product management is. So next question is, okay, so what's the difference between product management and project management, right? So I think most people on this call are familiar with project management, but how is it different from product managers? Well, product managers are responsible for delivering a goal, right? So the goal is to solve a particular customer need. So for example, you have customers who want to share the pictures. Well, the goal is to share pictures with friends and show everyone how much fun they're having. That's where Instagram comes, because it allows you to post pictures of yourself having fun and people can actually see it. Project managers deliver a project, right? So when structure is required, like for example, when you're building a skyscraper, right? You need to know exactly how long it's going to take. There's not a lot of uncertainty. You need to know exactly what the design is. You need to know like, how much material you need. You need to know like what type of material, what grade of concrete, for example, all that stuff you need to know beforehand. Everything is structured, and it's really important for you to deliver on time. So the focus basically is to deliver a project under certain constraints. So for example, you can have a timeline constraint, you can have a cost constraint, like you don't want to be a product manager and be like, okay, so what's the most innovative way I can build this skyscraper? You're going to waste a lot of money. You're probably going to, have some safety issues. But if you lead it as a project manager, you're going to have that structure, you know exactly what's going on, and then you follow that plan. So like that's some of the difference. So obviously, the project manager needs to know how to adapt to weather changes or supply shortages. That's in the case of building a skyscraper. You don't want to be experimenting. You don't want to be trying to figure out how to build the most, modern skyscraper while you're building it. That doesn't really work. You want to know for sure that the way that you're building it is going to work. You don't want to be experimenting on the way the building would actually end up after you're done construction. With product management, there's lots of experimentation, there's lots of uncertainty. The scope is not specific. You need to figure out what is required to achieve the goal, right? You need to know what is the goal. But also within product management, you need to do project management because you need to build, you need to lead the software team, the development team, to deliver on the product. So there's a little bit of project management in product management, but for more structured projects, you need an actual project manager. So when are project managers needed in software? So I just gave an example of where project management are needed in construction, but what about in a software company, right? Are project managers needed? The answer is yes. So for example, when you have two software companies merging together, and they need to merge the software platform, what is needed is quite defined. You know exactly what needs to be done, right? There's a constraint. You don't want to spend too much money integrating that software. There's so many different moving pieces. So you need a project manager to actually understand the whole system and make sure that all the little pieces fit together perfectly. There's not a lot of uncertainty. Again, like I said, another example is a large IT project with extensive change management. So say you're trying to implement a new software, say like an ERP system or a different way of dealing with customers using a new technology that your organization just bought. You need to get people trained. You need to understand what people's concerns are. But basically, what you're delivering is fixed. You're delivering this ERP system. You're delivering this analytics system. That needs project management, not product management. So, day in the life. What does it look like? What does it look like in the life of a product manager? What does the day in the life of a product manager look like? Well, it all depends on the company. It all depends on the type of product management you are. So, for example, if you're a hardware product manager, your day will be different from a software product manager. If you're a actual, product manager as opposed to a solution product manager, which I am, your day will be a little bit different. So for example, you can start the day by checking your email, reading tech news, social media, etc. Right? So when you're building a product, especially for business to customer product, you need to understand what the latest trends are. You need to know what's happening in the industry. You need to know how all these different tech changes actually affect your product, right? So you need to actually research and read tech news every day. You need to look at your social media. You need to know what people are saying about your product on social media, for example. You need to know if maybe there's a new product that people are actually tweeting about, for example, right? You also want to check your product matrices, right? So say, for example, your team just released a new version of your software. You need to be able to track what happened. Like, why was there maybe an increase in the number of users after your software after your upgrade, showing that your upgrade actually helped bring in more customers, or if it went down, maybe there's a new bug in your software and people are having issues, so let's plug in your products, right? So you need to be able to track the matrices and see, are there more people using it? Are people spending more time on your product? That kind of stuff, right? You also want to check customer feedback, right? So you might have a system where people can actually go in and actually give feedback, or maybe you can look at your social media and see who's tweeting at Facebook saying, oh, like this is broken, for example. You also want to look at your app store reviews, right? Are people actually, people are you getting more stars? Are you getting more 5 stars? Or is that going down? And then you might have a better forum. So if, for example, you have certain people testing out your product, you want to see what people are saying about the new feature that you released before it actually goes to everyone. You might also have a team stand-up. So I'll actually go over what the team stand-up is. You might also work with the designer, right? So the designer is basically the person who designs the product, who is responsible for the user experience of the product. So not just the user interface, but also how users experience your product, right? So you're basically going to have to be best friends with your designer because you need to work with them to do user research, understand the users, and actually develop user experiences or design user experiences that are best for your customers. But then also you need to work with your designer, your developers, who then take that design and actually make it into a product. You might also have to write like user stories. Say for example, there was an issue with the previous feature, you might actually have to write a user story. Or say based on your research, you say, oh, like lots of people are asking for this feature. Maybe I need to actually, write some new user stories. I'm going to explain what user stories are later, but basically, let's just say a quick explanation is user stories basically what a user wants to. User story is a way of explaining what the feature should be or what the developers should build without actually specifying exactly how they should build it. And we're going to go into more details into that, but basically you might spend time writing some stories, you might spend time writing some tickets and so on. And then you might also test releases with the designers. So some of these other things some product managers might do, for example, sprint planning. I'm going to go into more detail about that later. You might also meet with the sales team, the data science team. Maybe you want to understand, okay, so how are our users actually interacting with our software, right? Because you can actually see what are people clicking on, what are people spending time on, which pages are people spending time on. So you can actually spend time with the data science team to help you get that data that you need to analyze user experiences. You might also have to present to investors, right? So say you're a startup product manager, you might have to present to investors. You might have to present to your company CEO or your company executives on how your product is doing. Go over the matrices, show them the growth or show them some of the problems that you're having, that kind of stuff. You might also want to celebrate recent accomplishments. That's actually very important. Whenever your team does something really well, or maybe you're able to achieve a certain milestone, you should always, announce, at the very least, always announce the accomplishment, but you can also celebrate it as well. That goes a long way towards team building. And then for new employees, obviously, tech company, they might be hiring, the engineering team might be hiring more software engineers. Design team might be hiring more design engineers. You need to be able to explain to these new employees, this is the vision of our product, this is what we're building, this is why we're building it. So it's your job to actually explain that to the new employees. So these are some of the things that a product manager does. Do we have any questions? So basically, I just explained, the first part, which is what is product management, and what are some of the things product managers do, and what are the types of product managers, and how it's different from project managers. So I hope everyone has a better idea of what product management is. So I'm just going to go into the chat and see if there are questions.
Hi, Ayo. I have a question.
Sure.
So I see that there's so many things that has to be done, right? Are there like softwares or some sort of applications for you to manage like the life cycle or manage your activities or your interactions with the product, and also to manage your interactions with the other groups within the companies? What's your suggestions on how to do that?
Right. So the answer to that question is basically the best question to every answer anyone asks you. Remember this, as a product manager, if people ask you a question, you can always give this answer, if it's true, of course. But the answer is, it depends. It depends on the situation. So if anyone asks you a question, be like, it depends. Can you build this feature? It depends. So so basically, to answer your question, there's a lot of different tools. When you start to join a company, you're going to, see the tool that they use and probably just use the tool that they're using. It's not about the tool. It's more about, especially for product management, the tool is not as important. For software development, the tool is very important because that makes them productive, right? You're more dealing with people, so the tool is not as important, but there's a lot of different tools you can use. And I'll actually present that in the next class, where we talk about project management for product management. So just to, just give you some ideas, there's a tool called Jira. which is really popular. Basically allows you to write user stories and user tickets, and then those tickets can then go into a backlog. I'll give more details into that later. In terms of data analysis, there's a lot of tools like Power BI, Tableau. You can use that for analyzing as well. You also need to use Excel sometimes. You're gonna be using a lot of Excel, more Excel than you would think. Basically to analyze the data. So product management, Jira, Azure DevOps, analyzing data, Tableau, Python if you know some software development, or Excel. Any other question? Okay, Ifeoma, you have a question? Sorry, Adeola, did I answer your question properly?
Yes, it did. I wanted to say that if you've been on our previous Tech Master classes, if you haven't, it's okay. We have dealt with advanced Excel, like to the T. We had multiple classes on that. They're on our YouTube channel. You can go watch them if you're interested in that. Also, after this product management classes, we are bringing a data analyst. Someone who is she's very tech savvy. She's the one who taught the Excel classes. So I think she'll be teaching Power BI and some of those stuff that I just mentioned right now. So if you're interested in that, 3 more classes after Ayo's class would offer that. Thanks.
Yeah, data analysis is actually fun. Actually, yeah, I speak data science. Okay, so Ifeoma, your turn.
Hi, Ayo. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Ifeoma. Currently living in Paris. So my question is, do I need to be a developer or have an experience as a software engineer to be a product manager?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little confused. I have a geology background, and currently I'm trying to transition into data analytics. So I've just completed a course on data analytics with Audacity, but then I started getting interested in product data management. So I was wondering, okay, how can I tie the two together? Do I need to have an experience in order to get into this field?
Right. So I would say, for your second question, which was around the data course you were taking, I would say understanding data and data analysis is very important for product management. There's also data analyst roles that can be similar to product manager roles because they're basically, you're more on the business side than a data scientist sometimes. So being able to use data to help, businesses make decisions can be kind of similar to product management sometimes. But yeah, and then to answer your first question, you don't have to be a software developer to be a product manager. People come from different backgrounds. The background that you come from does determine your strength as a product manager. There's a lot of different strengths that are required for a product manager. So say, for example, you come from a software development background, right? Right off the bat, it's very easy to get the support and respect of your developers, which is always a good thing. It's very easy for you to understand the technology and how much work is required to build the features that you're prioritizing. So that would actually help you with prioritizing. It helps you understand. Yeah, I think the prioritizing part is really, really important. So it definitely helps you know how difficult what you're asking your developers to do is. But that's not the only way, right? When you come from the business side, business is very important too, because you would actually understand the customers. Sorry, you would understand the business. You would understand how the decisions that you're making affects the overall business, right? It will help you understand how to make better business decisions. It might help you better understand the market trends and how some of your actions might affect, the market, the external factors might affect your product. So that's the strength when you come from a business side. When you come from a project manager side, you might be better at, getting things done, like the implementation side of things, and understanding how long it would take, being better at estimating how long things would take, and being able to understand change management, because there's a lot of stakeholders you have to deal with. And then when you come from What's another good one? Yeah, so there's a lot of different parts you can come from. The part that you come from would give you an edge at the beginning, but depending on how well or how much you're willing to learn, you might be able to develop on the other sides as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. Just a final one. So a product manager is invariably different from a product data manager.
It depends. So I would say a product data manager is probably it depends, because it depends on what exactly you mean by product data manager. For example, you can be an engineering manager of a team that builds data product, right? Or you can be a product manager that your product is a data product, right? And another one might be, you might be someone, or like your team is responsible for understanding customer data. So maybe working with a team of data analysts to understand customer data to inform another team on the product that it should be working on. So it all depends on what product data manager actually means. There's a bunch of different things it can mean. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you did. You did.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, David. David, you're on mute, dude.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is, for entry level product managers, which degree is more important? Because as someone who is I'm about to enter the university, and I am looking for a degree that I can get that will push me more into the product management section industry. Like, can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I would say there's a lot of different degrees you can study. There's a lot of things you can study. There's not one way to go, like I mentioned before. If you come from business, you have your strength. If you come from, computer science, you have your strength. If you come from product management or anything else, there's different strength you might have. If you come from UX, right? If you were a UX designer going to product manager, you're actually better at understanding customers and customer flows, and better at working with designers to build products that actually work really well for customers. So that's a different strength. If I had to pick one, me personally, I would pick computer science.
Okay, yes, because I actually chose computer science, but I okay. Thank you
Yeah,
for the answer.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. I feel like the other things are a little bit easier to learn over time. So even a computer scientist, it's a little bit easier to learn the other stuff than for someone who wasn't to learn the computer science stuff. Yeah. Okay, next
Thank you.
person. No problem. Next person, Adeola. So Adetola Tams, sorry, Adetola Tams.
Oh, okay. Good morning, Ayo. I'm joining from Vancouver. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is there a difference between a product manager and a product owner? And the second question is, as a product manager, would I just be working in the agile environment, or a product manager would also need to work in the waterfall methodology environment? Thank you.
It's a really good question. So basically, the product owner is responsible for the features that get built, right? So product owner is responsible for determining, based on the business or the requirements of the business or requirements of customers, what should we actually build. So what is built is actually basically, if you build the wrong stuff, like that's most likely the product owner. The product manager is a little more broad, in the sense that if there's a product owner and a product manager, then the product owner is responsible for writing the user stories and figuring out what features get built first and so on. The product manager is responsible for the overall product, right? So the product manager is responsible for understanding, working with sales, right? They're probably more on the business side. They have to work with sales. They have to work with the executives. They have to do the presentations. They sometimes have to do, work with the developers. I would say product owner probably works a little bit closer to the developer sometimes. They're more responsible for the day-to-day and actually what gets built, but the product manager is responsible for the overall product. Your second, does that answer your question about the first one?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
The second one, yes, there's some cases where a product manager has to do like work in a waterfall team, but that product manager will probably be closer to a project manager. So basically, there's a full spectrum of stuff that product manager has to do, like understanding customer needs, understanding the business, prioritizing features, working with developers to actually get the features built. So working with developers to get the features built is the project manager part of things. So if you're working on waterfall, you might actually spend 90% of your time working on that part, the execution part, because the overall strategy, what needs to get built, is probably already defined by whoever did the project planning. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to talk more about waterfall and other methodologies later today.
Excuse me, are we going to get a certification like after this program, after this masterclass?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So one last question, Martha.
All right, hi.
Hi.
Ayobami, thank you so much for the class. It was actually really insightful. My question is tied to sort of like where I am now personally, right? I know that in the last part of your presentation, you talked about how when you have new employees in a tech company, the product manager is sort of like in charge of saying, oh, this is what you have to do and all that. So for someone who is looking to start out as an intern, due to my lack of experience in product management, right? What would you say is the typical, roles that are expected of an intern in a company? Because I think that there's a potential to not want to give them actual work, because of the lack of experience. I don't know what you have to say about that. Thank you.
Okay. So what I said earlier was product manager is responsible for explaining the product vision to the new employee, right? What they're going to be doing is responsible for their manager. Whoever the people manager is, whoever their manager is, that's their manager's responsibility for the product itself. Like, this is why we're building this product. This is why this team is set up this way. That's the product manager. In terms of the second question, I think it depends on the company. Like how much responsibility they give to interns depends on the company. I know the big tech companies, they do give quite a bit of responsibility to the interns because they're trying to get them to learn and come back as full-time employees. So I would say it depends on the company and it depends on the team, right? So some teams, you might actually be doing a lot of data analysis as opposed to like actual product work. You might actually be helping the product manager understand customer data, right? But that's one example. Another example could be you might be responsible for actually writing the user stories, right? So product manager will basically say, okay, so these are the features we need to build. You write the stories, maybe you prioritize the stories. You go talk to these engineers to figure out how long it's going to take to build this stuff. So those are some of the examples. Okay, so I'll let Lillian talk before we move on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're welcome. Lillian?
Hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so my question is really in terms of product and product management from the perspective of startups and entrepreneurs. Like I hear all this thing and it seems so intimidating. So how would you advise a new startup company with limited funds Like, as a startup, you pretty much have to do everything. You develop your product, you want to push it into the market. So how do you navigate all that? Like, what would be your advice? Because it seems you're focusing more on those who would like to work, go into employment as product managers and things like that. What would be your advice for entrepreneurs?
So what I would say is basically, like I said at the beginning, there's lots of skills that if you learn product management, it would help you in other things, right? So for example, if you learn product management, it will help you understand your customers better. So if you're a CEO, for example, of a startup, you need to understand your customers, right? So taking a product management course would actually help you with that. This course is focused on people who want to be product managers, not CEOs. So this product manager can actually be a product manager in a small startup, right? So basically understanding customer data, understanding customer wants, being able to define customer wants to help determine what actually gets built. Those are really important things for a startup CEO, because usually in a startup, the CEO is the product manager, but there's a difference between CEO and product manager. Product manager, you don't manage people, right? I think that's probably the biggest difference, is that product manager, you're not the boss, you don't manage people, you're just responsible for the product. The CEO needs to understand the finances. They need to understand how much money the company has, how much money they have coming in, so that when they hire more people, they actually have enough money to support those employees. The CEO needs to, they need to basically determine what problem to solve, and then the product manager then goes into detail of defining the user needs and then determining what gets built. But the CEO role is quite different from the product manager role, but having product management skills would help you be a better CEO.
Yeah, okay, so that's fair, but in a situation where the CEO is actually, if I'm understanding you, what I'm hearing you say, like if you have a concept or an idea and you most likely looking to subcontract it for the product to be developed, what if you're the one that has to develop actually make the product? For example, let's say I have the skills to make a pair of shoes and I have this design idea. What would you recommend? Would you say, okay, since I have these other roles to play, subcontract it out and focus on growing the product, or actually focus on creating the product? Because to do everything, it's really seems so hard. Like, how do you produce you don't have that money, you want to produce it yourself and you want to push it out into the market. So what would you suggest to be the best strategy on that one?
So basically, I talk later in the course, I'm going to talk about lean product development. And basically, my answer to you basically would be to be as lean as possible. It all depends on how many hours in a day that you have. So if you're a startup, then you probably, I don't know if you have enough money to pay someone or hire someone to be a product manager or contract. Like, I don't know how much money you have. I would say as a CEO, basically learn about product management and use that knowledge to build your product while doing these other CEO stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it all depends on your, it depends.
So that's the safe answer. The safe answer.
Yeah, basically. No, it's just the truth, right? It all depends on how much money you have. If you have money to hire someone, then hire someone. If not, then you have to do everything yourself. But product management will help you understand what you need to consider when you're doing everything yourself.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so we're gonna move on. Yeah, no problem. The other people who have their hands up, I would say maybe ask in the chat, and hopefully someone else can answer the questions for you. But just to keep in time, we're gonna go on. Actually, what time is it? 11. Okay, so we're gonna start this section, and then we're going to take a break. Okay. Oh, actually. Okay, so where was I? Sorry about that. Okay, so what does a product lifecycle look like? Generally, there's four main stages in the product life cycle. That is the introduction. This is basically where the product just reaches the market, right? There's no competition, especially if it's a innovative product. There's never been anything like that before. That's basically in the introduction part. There's a little competition, and you're also losing money, right? Because basically you don't have that many customers, but you spend all this time developing the product. You're basically burning money at that point. But that's needed because for you to grow, you have to spend money to actually develop something and make it the best it can be, and then scale up. The more customers you have, the more money you would actually make. The next stage is the growth stage. At this point, the product has been accepted by the market. Sales actually start to increase. Hopefully, at that point, you start going from having a loss to having breaking even, and also maybe making a profit. This part, you also want to start improving the product, right? Once you release a software product, you don't just let it stay. You also have to continually see what customers are saying about your product, figure out how to improve it, and also continue to improve it. At maturity, basically your sales is at the very top. There's more competitors because at that point, more organizations actually have the opportunity to learn about this product that you developed and how much money you're making, and they also want to make that money as well, right? So when you get to maturity, there's more competition. People are coming up with their own version of the product. Their product might be better than yours, so you have to continually innovate and continue to improve. And then the decline phase, right? So basically, when there's a lot of competition, maybe there's a new product that actually does the same need, solve the same need in a different way, in a better way, then that's basically when the sales start to decline. And at this point, the products get phased out. So this is just a framework or a way of looking at, product life cycle. It's not like one way to define it, but it's just an example of how you can actually define it. So basically, as a product manager, you want to understand where your product is within this life cycle so that you know exactly what you should be prioritizing doing. For example, when you are in the growth phase, you basically, you expect that your sales should be rising. If your sales is rising, then there's something wrong, right? And so on. So here's some example, product lifecycle. Introduction, I'm a Microsoft employee, so shameless plug here. Basically, we are launching Windows 11, which is coming out in a few months. So basically, the product is being introduced right now. Few people have access to use it. They can test it out, give feedback before it actually goes up. The growth phase, I'm sure most people know about PlayStation. So basically, the PlayStation 5 came out, I think it was December last year. It's actually growing. There's more and more people are trying to buy it. Maturity, I'm sure everyone knows about Snapchat as well. So this product is actually pretty mature. It's at the pinnacle. Lots of people know it. Lots of people are using it. There's lots of competition. For example, Instagram stories, which I mentioned earlier, is now a competitor for Snapchat. So all these other companies, even LinkedIn has stories now, right? So now there's a lot of competition. Snapchat basically has to continue to innovate and to show everyone that they're actually the ones that invented this and to keep their customer base. But unfortunately, a lot of the Snapchat customers are probably going to other platforms like Instagram stories and so on. And the decline, I don't know if anyone here still uses Yahoo, but yeah, that's a product that's in decline right now. So the product development process, right? How do you build a product, right? That's basically where the product development process comes in. The first stage, you want to conceive, what are we building? What do customers want? What is the need? What are the problems people are trying to solve, right? And then what are some of the ways we can actually solve it? And then the next stage is the plan phase, where you actually plan out, you have a plan on what you're going to develop, and then you start developing, and then using the agile methodology, you have to iterate, you develop a little bit, you get people to try it out, and then you develop a little bit, and then based on the feedback, you continue to improve it. So that's where you iterate, and then you launch. At this point, everyone's excited. You want to work really closely with sales and with marketing to make sure that as many people know about your product as possible. You want to make sure that all the features are working. You don't want to have like big issues when you launch, because people are going to delete your app and they're never going to install it again. And then you have the steady state. Basically, at this point, you're basically trying to see, how do I optimize on costs, right? To make sure that my operation cost goes down, because now that we've launched. And then the maintain or kill basically is, do we want to continue building this? Do we want to continue adding new features, or do we want to kill this product? So just to get into more detail, conceive phase is basically defining the why. Why are we in business? Why are we building this product? What are the things people are trying to do, right? So you need to understand why you're building this product. Very important question. If you don't have the answer to that question, you should not be building the product. You want to also collect user problems, right? So you want to talk to your customers. Oh no, sorry. Actually, I don't think. No, this is not really where. Yeah, so you can actually talk to customers at this point, just to have some early feedback and be like, how do you like? What are some of the things you do? What are you trying to achieve to better understand? And then also you want to brainstorm solutions. So is my solution going to be a software? Is it going to be an application? Is it going to be a web application? And then you want to identify areas of focus. Like, these are the actual features that I'm going to focus on this product, just before I start. So the goal of this phase basically is to understand the purpose of your product. Why are you building it? And have some ideas of what it's going to look like. So basically, you know that it's going to be a software, not a hardware solution, for example. And then, sorry. And then, so plan, the plan phase basically is where you strategize, right? Okay, so now I know the problem that I'm trying to solve, and I have some ideas of what it's going to look like, but I need to validate and make sure that what I'm actually trying to do makes market sense, that customers actually want this. You don't want to just go build something that no one's actually going to use. So you need to do some customer research, right? You need to go over the business case. You can build the best product, but if it takes too much money to build, or takes too much time to build, or if it doesn't align with your company's goals, then it's not a good product for you to be building. So that's where basically the business case comes in. You basically, you have to present to your executives and be like, oh, like, this is the customer research we've done. Like, lots of customers are actually having this issue. This is my business case. We can project that if we build this product, we can actually, this is how much it's going to cost us, or have some high level ideas of how much it's going to cost and how much money is going to save, or whatever other advantage it's going to bring to the company. So for example, in the case of an internal PM who needs to build software for fellow employees, you also need to go through this process, right? You need to understand what our employees want, what do your fellow employees want, and actually explain that if we build this software, our employees are going to be 10% more productive. They're going to be 50% more productive. They can actually do more. You don't have to hire more people, that kind of stuff. This is where you do customer interviews, right? So you want to talk to your customers and understand, okay, so what are you trying to achieve, right? You got to be very careful the way you ask those questions. You don't want to ask leading questions. We'll go more into that in the next class. But basically, this is where you talk to your customers. And then the roadmap. Basically, this is where you have a roadmap, which is, these are the things we're going to build. This is the order in which we're going to build them, and maybe some estimated dates on when you're going to build them. So the goal here is basically to validate your product with customer research and customer interviews, and also with the business case, and also to set the product vision. Like, this is what we're building. This is the direction of our product. Develop. This is where this is the fun part. This is where you have most of the project management in product management, where you actually build on the product, right? So you have to set up, the timelines. Like, this is exactly, you're going to define the specific features. In this roadmap, you're just having some high level ideas of when you're going to build some of the stuff. But here you actually have specific releases. You can group your user stories. You can group user stories into features, right? And then actually say, okay, so I'm going to build these features within this time, and so on. You can also have your product spec as well. For example, you want to make sure that when customers open your application, it loads up within 0.2 seconds, not 10 seconds. So that's basically where the product specs comes in. Basically, you're defining what is specification of your product and so on. So that's the build phase. So basically, by the end of this phase, you should have built the original version of your product, right? So maybe your MVP. I'll go more into what the MVP is. But basically, you want to have the original version of your product. Iterate. So this is the fun part. You build the original version of your product in the previous stage, but you basically have to go back and tell your customers that, okay, you told me what the problem is. Does this product solve your problem? And then they'll be like, no, this is a problem, right? So you go back and iterate, continue iterating until you have, the right product, at least for launch. And then so by the end of this phase, you basically have your MVP, which is your minimal viable product. So let me just take a time. Let me just take a second to explain what an MVP is. Basically, in lean product development, you don't want to build the whole software at once, right? You want to be able to build, minimize, or only use resources when you need to. So you build the smallest version of the product that you need to test whether or not, it solves customer problems, right? So you build the minimum product, which takes the minimum amount of time, takes the minimum amount of effort. There's different ways this thing could actually look like. So for example, it could be a sketch on a piece of paper. Like this is what it looks like. Or it could be, high fidelity design using a design software showing this is what it looks like. Or it could actually be a mock-up that allows you to actually click on stuff, click on pictures, and it actually shows you how the flow of the application looks like. Or it could actually be the first version of the product that doesn't have all the features ready, just some of the features. So as a product manager, you need to determine what goes into your MVP and then continue to get customer feedback until you're able to validate your hypothesis. Basically, a hypothesis is saying you have a customer problem. This customer product problem actually exists. It's not something in your head. But also, this product that I'm building actually solves that customer problem. That's where the validate hypothesis comes in. Continually improve, like I said before, and then you need to be ready for launch, right? So by the end of this time of the iterate phase, you're basically ready for launch. So launch is basically where you need to work with legal to make sure that the product that you're building doesn't have any legal issues. Like there's no copyright issues. There's no it's not going to cause problems for people in the future. It's not going to cause harm in the future, or it's not going to cause things that would make people sue you, for example, right? You also want to work with marketing, to make sure you have the best product launch. You want to get, as many people knowing about this as possible. You also want to get sales. Sales is very important in, someone wants to mute themselves. Okay. And then sales is very, very important for business to business PMs, because basically you need the salespeople to sell to the big corporations, right? So basically the goal here is for your product to launch really, really well. The better it launches, the more of momentum the product has. And then the steady state is basically where, okay, so now we spent all this money building this product. We want to make sure that, we're looking at customer usage. We're seeing how customers are actually using the product. How are they interacting with the product? You want to optimize the metrics. If people are not spending as much time as you expected on certain pages or certain features, then maybe you need to build some features or improve the feature to optimize the metrics so that more people actually spend time using it. You have marketing and sales continue to sell the product. You just gotta keep pushing, make sure that as many people as possible are actually using your product, and then continue to improve the product, right? So as you look at the metrics, as you look at the way people analyze or people use your product, you can then use that to make updates. So the goal here is to optimize costs. You want to reduce your costs. It's very expensive to develop products, but over time you want to optimize your costs, right? You want to increase your revenue. You want to work with sales and marketing to continue to get to that, uh, maturity stage, like to get to the top revenue point. And then this is also when more competition or more competitors actually come into the market. So you need to understand what your competition are doing and see maybe you need to like improve the product based on what they're doing and so on. And then finally, um, you know, you want to maintain or kill the product. So basically, you want to see, okay, this is 2021 July. Does this product still fit in the market, or is there a new product that people are actually using that solves the same problem, right? So you want to decide if that product still solves that problem better than other products in the market. You want to know if your product, which is similar to your competition's product, if it's still like competitive compared with them. Is it a good return on your investment, right? So do we want to continue spending our development resources maintaining this product, or do we want to take our developers and have them actually build something else, right? Because it could still be selling, you could still be making money, you could still be in the profit, but if it's not the best return for your investment, then you probably want to kill it, right? Does this still fit with your company vision, right? Microsoft has gone through a lot of, transformation. Previously, they had a really big licensing model, but now they're more like flexible. They're more open to open source software. Before they probably wanted to box people to have to pay licenses to use the software, but now they're more into open source software. So, for example, those previous models probably don't fit anymore. They want to know if the product still fits within the company vision. If it doesn't, then you have to get rid of it. And then if you decide to kill it, you need to do end of life planning for your users, right? Like you gotta make sure that your users are able to get all of the data out of the platform. So for example, if you're using OneDrive to store all of your pictures, you want to make sure that people have the opportunity to download all their pictures from OneDrive before you cancel the product, for example, right? You got to decide, are you going to continue to support customers until, like, can customers still call to get support on the product for the next, 6 months, 1 year? All that stuff are really important things to decide when you decide to kill the product. So basically, the goal here to decide if the product should be maintained or killed. Yeah, so before we go into questions, I think we should take a break here. I think people have been. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for sticking around, listening to me talk. I hope you're enjoying this. If you're enjoying this, please say so in the chat. Actually, can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. All right, awesome. Okay, so are you excited for the second part of this? All right, awesome. All right, I love the energy. Okay, so product management. We talked about product management. We talked about the product lifecycle. We talked about the product development process. So next stop is we're going to be talking about lean product management, which is basically how most products are developed these days, especially for startups, because startups don't really have money to waste. But I would say most software companies actually do this now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and skip the questions for now. Oops. Sorry. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. So, what is lean? Everyone keeps talking about lean, agile, lean. Like, what does this mean? Well, the whole idea of lean basically comes from manufacturing. Sorry, let me just make sure that. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just not used to Zoom. We use Teams. Is my camera on?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so basically, what is Lean? Lean is all about building products while making sure that you're not using resources up until you absolutely need to. So it's not just about using the least amount of product, resources, but also only using resources when you need it. That is really important, especially when you consider things like the time value of money, right? If you delay the spending of the money, it's basically you're getting more value. So that definitely applies in lean, any kind of lean. I come from lean manufacturing background. That was how I started my career. So it was all about making sure that we get the materials when we need them, because if you get it too early, you have all this money, all this capital tied up on materials that you don't need. So that basically applies in product development as well. So the whole concept is you're building a product, you want to make sure that you're using resources only when you need them, using the least amount of resources so you're not wasting. And again, it does not only apply to digital products, it applies everywhere. So now we talked about lean, but there's another buzzword. What is agile? Well, basically, agile is a way of applying the lean mindset to software development, right? So agile is basically specific to software development, and it's a project management philosophy for building software. And basically, the idea is you're building software in an iterative method. And some of the other things you need to consider is you're trying to group things into smaller batches. You have the product. Obviously, the highest level is the product. You have the full product or the full feature. In the case of Instagram stories, you have the product, and basically you have all these different features that you're trying to build within the product, and basically you want to group them into little pieces, and then execute in a way that you're not wasting resources. So in the example where you're a startup, or say you're like Instagram, right, and you're trying to build the new feature, which is the Instagram stories feature, and basically you have 10 features you want to have. For example, you want your users to be able to see who's actually viewed your stories. You want to be able to save the stories so that people can see it after the 24 hours. You want stories to disappear after 24 hours automatically, and so on. You want people to be able to share posts on their stories, right? So that's a whole bunch of features you want to build, right? You have 10 features. So doing this in an agile way, you would only research and develop 2 to 5 of those features, not all of them. You only focus on 2 to 5 features that are the most important feature. In the case of the stories, basically you want people to be able to post stories, and you want people to be able to watch the stories. That's it. Once you're able to do that, you have Instagram stories, right? So you basically pick those 2 features, or the 2 to 5 features. You design them, you research them, find out if people actually want this. You design them, how is it going to work? You develop it, you get feedback, you do that. Once you get the feedback, you release it. And then you're like, okay, well, now we have these 2 awesome features. What's next? Oh, what if people could actually see who's actually viewed the stories? So then you can do the same thing. You design the process, the steps, the experience, you research it, you make sure customers actually want this, and then you develop it and you put it back in there. So that's basically what agile is about. You're basically building software in a way that you're only building a subset of the feature. These features are grouped into into little pieces, and then once you have you have them grouped in little pieces, you focus on those features, you release them, and then you take feedback. If people hate it, take out the feature, build something else. If people like it, see how you can improve it. That's the whole concept of agile. It's that simple. I hope you guys better understand what agile is now, because I'm sure people are like, what is agile? Like, people keep talking about it. But yeah, that's what agile is. So the next question is, okay, so now we know what agile is, but here's another buzzword, Scrum. I keep hearing Scrum. What is Scrum? Well, in the popular game of rugby, in case you're wondering what this picture is, it's basically rugby. popular game of rugby, a scrum is used to begin a match, typically after some type of rule violation or error, right? Like maybe there's some kind of foul. And during a rugby scrum, you have 8 players from each team tightly huddle head down in 3 rows. The primary goal is to gain possession of the ball, which is placed in the opening between the 2 opposing frontline team members, right? So frontline team members right there. So that's basically what a scrum is. To borrow the concept of scrum from the game of rugby, the agile approach to software development is basically scrum is one of the ways of implementing agile. Uses scrum framework to effectively manage product development. So using the scrum framework to create the custom software, the product development team operates as a cohesive unit working towards a common goal. So in the case of this, you basically have these guys, the goal is to get the ball. And the team members function to support each other, empower each other. This involves constant communication, right? And realistic goal setting. That's really important. As a product manager, you don't act like the boss and be like, you guys have to build all this stuff. No, you have to work with the developers to set the goals, the timeline together, and get overall commitment from the team, right? So when it comes to Scrum, so basically, like I said, Scrum is one of the guidelines for applying the agile mindset. And there's 4 things you need to think about when you think about Scrum that makes it unique. Is sprint planning meeting. You have you use tickets and stand-up meetings, and then you also have the retrospective meetings. So in this sprint planning meeting, you start up with a big backlog of features. You have all these features you want to build. You want to build, Instagram story, and you want it to be able to, I don't know, send messages, like people should be able to see Instagram stories on their Facebook, or like we want to be able to see celebrities' Instagram stories that you haven't even added yet. These are all very nice stuff to have, but like, you have this big backlog. During the sprint planning meeting, you basically move all of these items, all of these tickets from the backlog to your sprint backlog. Then you talk about all of the work that needs to be done to complete each of those items, and then you put the work into what is called ticket. So basically, a ticket is a small unit of work that needs to be done. A sprint is basically a time period, usually 2 weeks. Usually about 2 weeks, but some companies use 4 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. So basically, the most important thing is you have a fixed timeline, and within that timeline, you have a series of tickets that your team have actually had. You had a meeting, the sprint planning meeting, to decide which one of these items are we going to complete within this sprint, right? So this time period is called a sprint, and usually lasts about 2 weeks. And some companies do 3 weeks, 1 month, and so on. And during that time, the team takes items from the sprint backlog and puts it into the progress on the board. And then when it's done, they move it from in progress to completed. And at the end of the sprint, you should have all of the items completed, everything in the sprint backlog. Whatever hasn't been completed goes into the backlog for the next sprint. So basically, the idea is you want to work in an agile way, and you have a goal, which is to complete these items in the sprint backlog. So you have the product backlog, which is all the features you want to build. You take out of that during the sprint planning meeting, put it in the sprint backlog, and then over time, over the 2-week period, you work on those items. The stand-up meetings, which is the third item here, are short meetings, usually held in the morning. They're called stand-up because the theory is that if everyone remains standing, the meeting will be very brief and concise. You want it to be very, very brief. You don't want to spend too much time every day having meetings. Every team member talks about what they have completed the previous day and what they're working on next and what they need help with, right? So whatever questions they might have and so on. So these daily meetings keep everything moving smoothly because everyone understands the problems everyone is having and what everyone is working on. The retrospective meeting usually happens at the end of the sprint. We talk about what went well and what didn't go well, right? So say for example, you didn't finish all the items in the Scrum board, then during the retro meeting, you talk about why didn't we get it done? What were some of the issues? What went well? The things that went well, you want to focus on that as well to see how you can replicate it for future sprints as well. And ensure that everyone has a voice and everyone can voice their concerns. Kanban is another way of implementing the agile philosophy. And basically, this one comes from manufacturing, which I'm pretty familiar with. In Kanban, basically, the concept is you don't want to build any more product than you have to, right? So basically, you're using a pull system as opposed to a push system. A pull system means that you have a manufacturing process. The previous step basically doesn't do anything until the next step has taken all of the parts from the previous steps, right? So basically you have, this person actually opens the box of parts, and then he gives the Kanban card to the material handling person, who then takes the card over to the next production line. And then the production line, they know that this person has used up the product. So they then use that to create a production card. And then that production card then tells them what they need to produce to replenish the part that this guy is about to consume. And then this guy then takes the full box and then takes it to that guy as well, who would then also do the same thing as well. And over here, it's the exact same thing, right? So he tells basically the material person guy takes the card and tells these guys that we just consumed all these parts. So we need to build more of the same part, and then, takes the part and he gives it to this guy. So that's basically how the Kanban works in manufacturing. But it's basically the same thing with the Kanban Agile system. Again, we're trying to be lean. So we don't use sprints. There's no sprint backlog. You just have one very big backlog. You don't have specific meetings. You don't prescribe stand-up meetings. The only thing is that you can only have a certain number of tickets in each state, right? So when I say state, you have backlog, you have in process, you can have in testing. So you can, your team can actually develop the board, the stages, development stages as much, however you need to. It could be backlog, in development, in testing, done, released, and so on, right? So basically, you can only have so many tickets in each stage. And that's basically where the whole lean thing comes in, because it minimizes the number of things that are being worked on at the same time, right? You want to be lean, you want to focus on certain features and actually ship those before you start working on the next stuff. So ideally for teams, you're not concerned this. So the question is, why should you use Kanban, or why should you use Scrum? Basically, the Kanban system is ideal for teams that are not concerned with making estimates and are continuing to move tasks through the same number of steps, right? So say, for example, your team is not concerned with having an idea of how quickly you can deliver the product, right? Kanban is really good for that. Or if all the steps in the development process, like I said, is always the same, right? So you always have the backlog, you always have in process, you always have, in testing and so on. Kanban is really good for that. The good thing about Kanban is you don't have to spend time, in sprint planning. You don't have to spend time on a lot of different things. It's more flexible. But the advantage of sprint is that you don't use sprints. You don't have you don't know that within these next 2 weeks, these are going to be done, right? Because you don't have that planning there. So one of the good examples of where you should use Kanban is in support tickets, right? So say, for example, customers have an issue and they need to, fix the bug. Basically, there's a whole bunch of customers, submitting bug tickets. All that stuff goes into the backlog. And then the team that's responsible for resolving those bugs, they would then go through that whole process, move it to in process. And then next step is, okay, build it. And then the next step could be test it. and then validate with customer to make sure that the bug has been fixed, and then done, right? So that's a fixed step. So that's an example of where you want to use Kanban. Another one is actually the one, my example, which is a lot of my projects at Microsoft. I don't have a fixed developer team. I usually have a set of volunteer developers to help me build my solutions, right? So it's very difficult to have very strict timelines or very strict plans of what's going to be done on the sprint because they have their own day jobs as well. There's a lot of uncertainty. It's very difficult to predict when they'll be busy or when they'll be less busy. So basically, we have a Kanban board where we have all these items that need to get done. It moves through a standard set of processes. And then when it gets done, we're able to release it. So that's basically how we apply Agile in my team, or at least on my product. So waterfall. So basically, when people talk about traditional project management, that's basically the waterfall process, right? Where you develop all of the features at once, right? So you do the research for everything that needs to get built. You build everything, you release everything at once. The downside of this is, so like for example, in the case of the Instagram story feature, you basically take all of the features that you want, right? You gotta build the Facebook integration. You gotta build the, people being able to comment on your stories. You gotta build everything at once, and then you release everything at once, right? The problem with this is it's very risky because developing 10 features will take too long. By the time you're done building those 10 features, well, guess what? Snapchat already has a whole bunch of new features that are so much better than yours that no one even cares about your Instagram stories anymore. So that's the big risk. Maybe the customer needs changes. Maybe no one cares about disappearing pictures anymore. Now people are more concerned with TikTok, for example, right? So if it takes you too long, you lose all that money. You lose that opportunity to be a pioneer and actually release something to the public. Also, you might actually spend all the time building features that people don't care about, right? Like, for example, people are like, I'm an Instagram guy. There's no reason for me to be posting my stories on Facebook. I don't use Facebook. So like, why are you building it, right? You just wasted all that money, right? So you just delayed your launch by 2 months to build a Facebook integration when no one actually wants that. So that's waterfall. But it doesn't mean that waterfall is bad. The cases where you actually need to use waterfall, right? So for example, operating system like Windows 11, right? You can't just release on the operating, you can't just take a subset of Windows 11 and be like, oh, okay, so these are some of the Windows 11 features we're going to build for now. And then the rest of it, like the operating system doesn't work until you have all of the features done, right? You can't be like, oh, I'm just gonna use Windows 10 and then put some Windows 11 features in there. Like it doesn't really work that way. You have to build the whole thing, right? It's very difficult to pick a certain set of features to build and then release. Everything depends on each other. You have everything within an operating system depends on each other. There's another case is when you're building very mission critical applications. For example, when you're building the software that manages the braking system of your car or the engine system of your car, right? Would you be like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna release some of the features of the braking system, and then I'm gonna release it with the car, and then the car can get Wi-Fi upgrades in the future to have, some of those like upgraded features of the braking system. Would you buy that car? I don't think so, right? So this is safety. You can't really use Agile in that sense. Some of the ways you can do it is when you're actually testing internally, but you cannot release it. You cannot launch that car until the braking software is complete. Same with the engine system of the car, right? And then another example is in a regulated industry, right? Like in a bank, when you're trying to build like the banking application or some of the internal software required in the bank, those organizations are regulated, heavily regulated. So there's certain things that need to be done before you can actually release it or actually start using it. I'll give you an example. When I was working as a data scientist at TD Bank, I built a chatbot, which is awesome. Didn't have all the features, but I wanted to release it and start using it. But the problem is we needed to go through this verification process, right? So we basically needed to get a whole bunch of the things done and then go through the validation process to make sure that everything confirms to our regulated industry standards before we could actually start using it. So that's an example of when you actually need to use waterfall, right? And then the last one is the example I gave before, building the skyscraper. You're not going to build just 5 floors and be like, okay, you know what? We have 5 floors. You guys can move in now. We're going to build the rest of it later. It doesn't really work that way, right? So when your waterfall software development process is being built, the team does not collaborate as closely as you do in an agile team, right? So these teams can actually be in different cities, different time zones, like different places spread around the world. You can actually have one team responsible for building the main, I guess, the foundation of the operating system that connects directly to the hardware, and then they then pass that on to another team in, I don't know, let's say Europe, who's responsible for building the user interface on top of that. And then another team in China deals with like the testing, right? So all this stuff needs to get completed in a waterfall manner. So that's one of the advantages of waterfall, is that they don't all have to be together. But on the other hand, you're not as agile. Okay, so that's basically what the lean process is about. I'm gonna maybe just take 2 random questions. Let's see, how do I do this? I'm gonna take 2 random questions. Okay, I think I got 2 people already. Sorry guys. Okay, Adeze, you wanna go first? You're on mute.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My question is really about the Kanban process that you explained. I would like you to throw more light on it, the Kanban. I understood all the aspects of waterfall, agile, lean, but the Kanban is still very, maybe because I don't understand the rugby game or what, but it's still shady to me. Thank you.
So basically you have lean, right? Which is basically philosophy of building software while using the minimum amount of resources and only using resources when you need them. So that's lean. Agile is a lean philosophy, basically geared towards software development. And within within Agile, there's different, you have to implement it, right? Agile is a philosophy, but how do you then implement it? There's 2 ways of doing that. There's Scrum, and then there's Kanban, right? So Scrum, basically you have a sprint, right? You have 2-week window. You have a sprint planning where you work with the developer and the designer to decide these are the tickets, or these are the user stories we're going to build within this 2 weeks, this sprint. And then they're going to take those items and they're going to start working on it. And they're going to take it from sprint backlog to in process. And then they're going to work on it. And then they're going to take it from in process to done. Hold on one second. Let me just, I want to show a picture. Let's see, images. Just show everyone what that looks like. Share my screen. Okay, so this is basically what a Scrum board looks like. It could be a Kanban board as well. So basically you have all these, like this is the backlog, right? This is the Scrum backlog, and each one is a ticket, right? So for example, add the API connection between the front end and the back end. Design what the screen looks like when customers are on this page. Design what the screen looks like when customers are on this page. So this is a whole bunch of stuff that they want to do within this sprint. This is the sprint backlog. And then this designer is going to come, it's going to be like, okay, I need to build something. Okay, so I'm going to take this one at the top. I'm going to put it here so that everyone knows that I'm working on this, right? And then another designer can come, you can take that one and put it in here. Another developer can come, take this one, put it here. And then, sorry. Oh, this is actually This is actually a Kanban board. But basically, this is like basically it's like, okay, these are the things that we have decided we're going to do in this sprint, right? We're going to do all this in the sprint, right? And then he's going to be like, okay, well, I don't have anything to do, so I'm going to go pick one ticket, put it here, and then when he's done working on it, he's going to take it from there and put it there. So now you can go on this board and see what is actually being done, what is being working on, what do we need to do. You can be like, oh my God, it's Thursday, sprint ends on Friday, and we should have all these items not done. So it's very visible. Everyone can actually see it. This is basically using Post-it notes. You can also use software for that. So the difference between Scrum and Kanban is Scrum, you actually decide what is going to go into within that 2 weeks. Kanban, you don't decide that. You only have a whole bunch of stuff you need to build. They're all prioritized in the right order, and then developers just pick tickets from the top to get it done. But the thing about Kanban is you can only have so many tickets in each stage. So for example, you can only have 4 tickets in progress. You can only have 3 tickets in to do, because if you have too many stuff there, it's like everyone's building a whole bunch of features and we're not releasing anything to customers. So you're trying to be lean. You want to release as much stuff as possible to customers as quickly as possible. So that's why you're restricted on how many things you can have in progress. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Hello? Yes, it does.
Awesome. Okay. Next question. Next question is Ijema.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening. Can you hear me, please?
Yep.
Okay. My question is about the research, user research. So you did say that as a product manager, you have to do user research to know if your products, people still want to use the product. Say you've already released your MVP, and then you want to see if you're still going to be in business. So how do you know? So for a product that hasn't been released, users haven't tried it, or maybe a feature that you want to add on, and users don't even know about it. How do you do research in that case to know what users would like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We are going to talk about user research in the next class.
Okay.
Yeah, but today we're going to talk about how to identify user needs, like what are things people actually want. But next class we will talk about user research. All right.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and continue. We're a little bit behind, I think. As soon as I figure out how to share my screen again. Yeah, we should probably be using Teams for this. Okay, so okay, so now we talked about product management and we talked about agile and the different ways of applying agile, or 2 different ways of applying agile. There are other ways, but those are the 2 most popular ways. Now we're going to talk about one of the most important jobs of a product manager, which is identifying user needs, right? So basically, every product you have used comes from an idea or a need, right? If there's no need for the product, then why are you building it? So you basically need to understand that as a product manager, your goal is to satisfy user needs, not just build products, but to satisfy user needs. Those users could be, they could be employees. There's different ways that ideas for a product or ideas for a feature can actually come from. They can actually come from employees, right? So for example, from sales can be like, oh, you know what, like our customers are looking for this feature, or this big company, they want to sign $50 million contract with us, but like they need our software to be able to do this, right? So that's an example of features. Ideas coming from employees. It can also come from matrices, right? It can be like, oh, users are spending too much time on this page, or like whenever customers are trying to buy our products, whenever they get to this page, they always, like 50% of them drop off, right? 50% of them get to this page and they don't continue with the purchase. So maybe there's something wrong with this purchase and with this page. Maybe I need to go fix it. right? So how do you know that's happening? You look at the matrices. So basically, part of building the software is building things that will allow you to see customer behavior. So that's where the matrices come in. Another one could be, oh, we just got 50 people sign up to our platform last week, but the week before we only had 20. So which means that there's more and more people signing up to our platform. So that's awesome, right? Another one can be from users, right? Users, maybe they're filling in surveys. You can be like, you can send out a survey saying, how satisfied are you with this product? What are the things you'd like to improve in this product? That kind of stuff. You can get user feedback that way, or you can also have interviews to understand the needs that customers actually have. You have to be careful the way you ask them, so you're not asking leading questions, but they're actually just telling you what they have done, not what they would do in certain circumstances, but what they have done. Because people saying what they would do, maybe like people just say stuff sometimes. They don't really know what they would actually do because they've never actually been in that situation. So if you're actually able to ask the question around what have you done in the past, what problems have you had in the past, then you can actually know that for sure this person actually had this problem, and I need to help this person fix it by building a product or a feature. Another one can be from clients, right? So clients are different from users in the sense that, especially in the case of business to business, right? So the client is basically the person that signs the contract. The user is a developer who actually builds who uses the software, right? So my team work for Microsoft Azure, and within Microsoft Azure, there's a whole bunch of products. I focus on products around container that uses container technology. What container is not really important at this point, but basically it's a software that allows developers and IT people be more productive and allows software development teams more rapidly release features to customers, right? So it basically helps you be more agile by making it easier for you to release features or software much more quickly. So that's what basically the product that I build. So the CEO or the purchasing executive, maybe the chief purchasing officer or the person responsible for purchasing our software could be the clients, because they're the ones who actually buy the product. But the developers who are using our software, those would be the users. So it's really important for you to know the difference and to know that you can get ideas from both people. Your job is to collect and prioritize these things, right? So every PM, I don't even know how it's possible for someone to have 2 full-time jobs as PMs. I think someone mentioned someone had that. I'm not sure how that's possible, but every PM, there's a lot of things you have to do. You have to do market research. You have to do a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of features that get thrown at you. Marketing can be like, oh, I need you to build this. Developer might be like, oh, you know what? Like if you build this, that would be awesome, right? Your executive could be like, oh, I think we should really think of building this, right? But it's your job to decide which one of these ideas is a good idea or a bad idea. But not just that, why is it a good idea or a bad idea? One of the big things of this job is being able to communicate, right? So if a developer says, I think we should build this, and you're like, I don't think we should build this, you need to be explained why. Not, I'm the boss, I'm the PM, I'm the one who knows best, we're not doing this. You need to be able to explain to them, right? Don't forget, these are very expensive resources. You need to be able to work really well with these developers and the designers and the executives. So you need to be able to explain why you're prioritizing these features. Also, very important is when. You can have this huge backlog of all these features. Like, for example, I want to be able to integrate my Instagram story with Facebook, but guess what? This is not a top priority. We should probably focus on this other thing that allows people to like Instagram stories, for example, right? So that's basically what your role is when it comes to user ideas. It's not to have all the ideas, but to prioritize them and determine when they should be done. Okay, so where different ideas come from depends on the type of PM. At the beginning of this conversation, I talked about 3 main types of PMs. You have the internal PM. Mostly their ideas come from employees, right? So for example, the developer who wants a better API to connect to so that he doesn't have to spend so much time querying the database, right? That's an idea coming from an employee, a coworker. Another one could be an idea coming from a CEO, right? That's also like, coworker, employee. And then also from matrices, right? You can be like, you know what, our current system, it takes way too long to query the database. We need to build a feature that allows us to optimize it or to like pre-aggregate the data so that we don't have to spend so much time querying stuff, right? So using the metrics, you can actually see what needs to be built for your fellow employees. For business to customer, you do a lot of your ideas come from users, right? People are going to tweet that, oh my God, I wish Instagram story feature can actually allow me to resubmit someone else's story, right? So that could be something someone says on Twitter, or maybe when you have user interviews or surveys, or if you, so basically when you interact with the users, you can get some ideas on how to add more features to your product. For the metrics, you can also see that a lot of our customers are dropping off at this point, right? So maybe we need to improve, add a new feature for this page. That's another source of idea. Another one could be coworkers, right? Your sales, or I guess, whoever coworkers, they could be like, I think we should definitely prioritize this feature because this client just, sorry, not client. We're seeing from our data, from the trends, that people actually really want this feature. So this should actually be employees, not coworkers, just to keep it standard. But yeah, for business to business PM, most of the ideas actually come from employees, right? Especially from sales team. Definitely, I work really, really closely with our sellers and our cloud solutions architect to figure out what are the issues that they're having with our customers to help prioritize the features. Another one is the clients themselves. You can actually, talk to them and actually understand, some of the feedback that they might have on your product. And then finally, the metrics. So basically, this list is in order of priority. For internal PM, most of it comes from customers. From business to customers, most of it comes from users. And for business PM, most of it comes from employees. Okay, so now this is the big question. Okay, I want to be a product manager, but I don't know what to build. What do I build? Right? So this is a very important question. When you're working on as a product manager, you want to understand, you want to understand what customer motivations are, right? So it's not just the activity. You can focus on activity, or you can focus on motivation, right? The activity could be, I'm thinking, let's see. The activity could be, I need to go from here to the next city, right? So that's an example of an activity. No, sorry. I need to, when you look at the customer behavior, you can be like, oh, like our customers are using horse carts. And basically the activity is basically, they need to go from here to here. So they go into the horse cart and they use, the horses and the cart basically takes them to where they're trying to go. So if you look at the activity, it's basically they're going into the horse cart and they're going to where they're trying to go. But then how do we improve this product? Well, we can improve the activity by making it more comfortable horse cart, or we can make it so that now you can have 3 horses pulling the cart so they can go faster, right? So that's looking at the activity, like what they're actually doing. But when you think about the motivation, what is the motivation? They're trying to go somewhere else. They're trying to go somewhere else. They're trying to go from here to there, right? So how can we get them to where they need to go to? Well, maybe instead of using horse carts, we can build an automated system that doesn't require horses to help them get to where they need to go. And there comes the car. You build a car because you're focusing on the motivation, which is to get them from one place to another. not the actual activity, right? So you need to understand the job that the customer is, sorry, one sec. Okay. Okay, I think I might have been missing a slide, but basically, we need to understand the job that the customer is hiring the product to do, not just the product, right? So you're looking at what is their motivation, what are they trying to achieve? Focus on the outcome as opposed to the actual product that they're using. So Jeff Bezos, I think we all know him. He's the CEO of Amazon, and I think he's still the richest person in the world. And basically, what he's saying is that things people want doesn't really change very often. It doesn't change very quickly. But the way that they do it is basically changing, right? So how do you come up with ideas? The job that they're trying to do is always the same, or for the most part doesn't change. But you can actually develop new solutions to the same problem. So when you focus on the things that don't change, which is the need, you can have amazing product. So people and organizations, what they want doesn't change often, but what changes is how they fulfill those needs. So here's an example, right? When people are commuting, people want, they're looking for ways to pass time while they're commuting. In the past, people used to read newspapers, but now people use their phones. They will go on Twitter and so on, right? So when you think of the job to be done, which is basically to pass time during the commute, you can actually build product that actually helps solve that customer need, as opposed to maybe making a new kind of newspaper or something, right? You actually focus on the job to be done, as opposed to the actual activity. Here's another example, right? People want to, they wish to put their favorite photos in a prominent place so other people can see. So people used to put hang up pictures on their walls, right, to the left. But now people just use Facebook. They put the pictures on Facebook and everyone can see it, and people can actually like it. So basically, the idea here is we want to make things that people want. It's easier to make things that people want than to make people want things. I want everyone to focus on that a little bit. It's easier to make things that people want than to make people want things. So when you make stuff that fulfill a need, it's easier to get them to buy it, right? As opposed to trying to make something and then convincing people that they actually need this when they never even thought that they needed it. So that's basically the whole concept of basically age-old problems, but coming up with new solutions to them. But how do you make things that people actually want? Well, there's 3 ways you can do it. You can take steps out, right? You can make it, so instead of taking 7 steps, for example, you can make a new software or a new technology that allows them to complete that same task in 3 steps, right? Another way is to make it possible for more people to use it, right? So maybe, for example, something used to be very expensive, but now thanks to your product, more people can actually use it, right? And another one is to make it possible in more situations. So maybe people were only able to use the internet when they go to cyber cafe, like only those few times they can go to the cyber cafe. But if you're actually able to make sure that people have internet on their house, they're able to use the internet all the time, right? So make it possible in more situations. So I'm going to take a deeper dive into that. So taking out steps is an example. Taxes, right? So if you, in the past, when we were using taxis, well, I guess we still use taxis now, but basically to use a taxi, you need to find out what the taxi phone number is. You need to call them. You need to tell them where you are. You need to identify the car when you get there. You need to tell them the desired destination. This is where I'm trying to go. And then you need to pay them, right? So that was basically the process, like 7-step process, just to get a 6-step process, just to get from where you need to go. But now with Uber, a lot of those steps actually get taken out. So Uber basically took out a bunch of steps. Basically, you don't need to find a taxi's phone number. You just open your Uber app. You don't have to call them. You don't have to tell them your location. The Uber app already knows where you are. So that's 3 steps done already. Identify the car. Well, guess what? There's a picture of the car in your Uber app. So that takes out another step. Tell them your destination. Well, you can just type that in, while you're waiting, pay. Uber automatically, pays the driver. So that's one example. The next one is, how do you make it possible for more people to use it? Think about e-commerce, right? So you have a website. You want to be able to sell your product on your website. In the past, only technologists with, big computers who know how to build software, who know how to build websites, could actually have build e-commerce website. So basically, you would have to hire a software engineer to build the software for you and host it on, his server. Or like only big organizations could actually afford to have e-commerce websites because they have enough money to have the servers, to have everything that you need. Also, maybe like universities, right? If you have resources or access to these research facilities, then you have all the computation, you have all the brains to have like a website, for example. That was in the past, right? But now we want more people to be able to use e-commerce, right? So now you have stuff like Azure. So shameless plug here, I work for Azure. Basically, Azure is a cloud platform that allows you to host your website, right? So you don't have to go buy your own servers. You don't have to go buy your own computers. You can just, if you have a developer, he can develop the website for you, and you can actually host that on Azure as opposed to hosting it on in your servers, in your data center. But what's even easier than that is to use a website like Shopify, right? You don't even have to work with a developer for Shopify. You can just pay Shopify to give you this software as a service solution where you can use their tools to build websites, to build your e-commerce website without actually having to write any code. So you can actually have an e-commerce website. You can actually sell yourself on your own website without having to write any code or hire a developer. But even easier than that is Amazon in some cases, right? Obviously, sometimes you need to have your own website, but you don't always have to. You can just sell yourself on Amazon, right? So basically, technology, you can build products that makes it possible for more people to use it. But without Azure, without cloud technology, without Shopify, without Amazon, regular people can't have e-commerce websites. Another one is make it possible in more situations, right? So in the past, the only time you could talk to people on the phone is when you're at home. If they leave their house, you can't talk to them because obviously they don't have their phone with them, right? But with technology, now we have phones, we have cell phones. Like you can call someone, you expect them to pick up because even if they're not home, they have a cell phone with them. You can easily talk to them in any situation, not just when they're at home. So that's basically, so these are some of the ways to ensure that you are building products that people actually want, as opposed to building something that you think is awesome and trying to convince them to actually use it. So then now we come to the concept or the framework of jobs to be done. There are multiple ways to understand exactly what to build. You can actually consider these things, and then once you decide exactly, to have some ideas of what direction you should go with, you can then start defining, user persona to understand. Okay, so I'm a user. Maybe I'm a middle-aged woman who has 3 kids, and I need to be able to, I don't know, whatever it is, middle-aged women do, trying to build a product to fit that woman. But that's great because it's really important for you to understand your customers and understand the different kinds of people that might use your product to help you build the best product. But another approach is actually to, use the jobs to be done approach. So basically, jobs to be done approach talks about is an approach to discover user needs that's based on the premises that customers don't buy products. They basically hire a product to do something for them, right? So for example, when you buy your phone, you're not just buying a phone, you're basically hiring a phone to help you surf the internet or call people or text people, right? So when you understand the job to be done, which is to call people or to text people, right? Like you wouldn't even be thinking about, oh, it has to be something that has a wire and it's connected to something, right? You can actually just say anything that allows me, someone to talk to other people, would actually qualify, would actually get that job done, right? So now you can start thinking of other things like, using a cell phone or, using your computer, for example. So I'm actually talking to everyone using my laptop right now, and I don't I'm not even using any kind of wired connection. It's all Wi-Fi, right? So the job basically is to communicate with people, building products that fill that need the best way. Is actually basically what using the concept of jobs to be done helps you with. So, for example, so when you think about the weather app, right? I'm not sure, how many people actually use the weather app on this call, but basically, weather app tells you what the weather forecast for that day is, right? So the question is, what is the job here? Basically, the person is looking at the weather app not just to see what the temperature is or how sunny it is, but sometimes they want to know, can I wear shorts today? Can I wear shorts today? I need to know whether or not I need to take my umbrella when I go to work, right? So the job is basically to determine whether or not I need to take my umbrella to work, or whether or not I can wear shorts, or whether or not I need to wear a jacket because it's going to be cold. That's why they're using the weather app, right? So basically, you can build an application that doesn't tell you what the temperature is, because with that, you basically need to know, okay, it's 5 degrees. I guess that means that I need a jacket, and maybe I don't need an umbrella. Or you can when you think about the job, which is to understand what you need to wear, you can actually have an app that transforms the weather forecast from stuff like 5 degrees with a chance of rainy to actually you open the app and it tells you you should probably take your umbrella today and you definitely want to wear a jacket, right? Imagine if you had an app like that. You open the weather app and it tells you exactly what you need to do without actually having to think about, what does 5 degree mean, right? So when you think about jobs to be done as opposed to the product itself, it helps you come up with very innovative products. We think of a chair, for example, right? So I'm actually sitting on a chair right now, right? Basically, the product is a chair, but actual job will be to provide comfort for me to be in a comfortable position, so that I can be more productive. And also, I need something that works within, helps with the decor of my house. Like I want to have chairs that looks nice, and fits with the rest of my decor. So when I'm building a chair or a couch, I can think of stuff like, okay, so what kind of people actually use this? They want their living rooms to look nice. So maybe these are the things I need to think of. Or this person is probably trying to be in a comfortable position. Maybe they don't need a chair. Maybe what they need is something that, allows them to sit in different, positions, right? And then that basically creates a new product. Another one is a music streaming app, right? So basically the application is you have a music streaming app that allows you to listen to music. But is that really the only thing people want to do? People want to be able to discover new music, right? They want to be able to know what kind of music they listened to in the last year. For example, in the case of Spotify, every year at the end of the year, it basically gives you a summary of what you listened to throughout the year, right? So that's actually a job to be done. Basically, I want to know what music I listened to, or I just heard this really cool song that I listened to in a party or something. I need somewhere where I can actually save that song so that I can listen to it later. That's a job to be done, right? So when you think of a music streaming app as a job to be done, you think about what is this person trying to do and actually build products that actually helps you get that job done. So basically, the advantage of using the jobs to be done paradigm is that it lets you focus on making things that people actually want when you're solving the needs that already exist. Again, you're trying to build products that solves needs that people already have, as opposed to building something and then convincing them to use it. So that's basically what this paradigm actually helps you with. So obviously, some products are better at defining what people want better than others. this is important because people come from different walks of life, different abilities, different countries, and have different substitutes, right? The only thing they have in common is the job that they need to get done. Being able to define your product in the context of exactly what users really want to get done will help your product be that much more successful. It's important to understand the intimate jobs that needs to be done. That's what basically creates demand. And that's basically why understanding the motivation is really important. So, for example, you want to focus on the job. You have a user persona who wants something that allows them to back up their software. That allows you. It basically allows them to have their pictures show up on multiple devices. So, for example, you want your pictures to show on your phone. You want your pictures to show on your laptop. That's this persona. That's the first persona. The second person is more interested in making the picture look pretty or make it look nice before they share it with your friend, right? That's what this person cares about. This other person, they want to showcase their work because they're professional photographers. Basically, their job is they want to make sure that they're able to show the highest possible pixels of the picture. So obviously, the gallery application on Android phones, for example, allows you to display your pictures on multiple devices. If you take a picture with your Samsung phone, for example, you can open up your Windows laptop and you see your pictures there, right? Same thing with I think it's iPhotos. Take a picture with your iPhone, you can see it on your Mac computer, right? So that basically does that job, fits this person, whatever the job this person wants to get done. The gallery and the iPhotos helps you do that. Same thing, they want to make it look pretty before they post it. Instagram lets you do that. This person wants to have the highest possible resolution. Obviously, you can't use Facebook for that because Facebook actually compresses your picture. So you have to use like a different application to show your work. So these are just some of the things that you want to focus on the job. And basically, it's like the job is basically take a photo, but you need to be able to understand what the actual motivations are. So basically, you want to understand the motivation as opposed to the attributes, like I mentioned before. So basically, you have a mother of 3 in the US posting pictures from a family barbecue, or you have a teenager in Korea posting pictures of a house party, right? So in this case, you basically have Facebook filling both situations, because when you think about an application like Facebook that's used by 2-point-something billion people, it's very difficult to design for just one person, right? So being able to understand what the motivations are would actually help you build the right product. So while it's very important to understand your customers and what they do, sometimes understanding why they're doing it is more important than understanding what they actually do. So you're leading with motivation of why they're doing what they're doing, and that would actually help you prioritize on the features that you should build. So how do you understand what jobs people are actually trying to do? So when you're building an application like Facebook, right? Like I said before, you need to be able to understand what people's motivations are. But how do you know that? The easy way to do that is to talk to them, right? You talk to your users, or you look at their comments, you look at their feedback, and basically based on talking to them, you will actually understand why they're trying to do what they're trying to do, and that would actually help you build the best possible product. And basically that's it for today. Actually, I'm just gonna take some questions and then I'll present the assignment. I know we have about 10 minutes left. Are there any questions? Okay, so we got one question. Chinyeka, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, hi everyone. Okay, so I know you've probably heard of design thinking. It's a methodology that involves you, or rather that helps you to empathize, to define, to ideate, prototype, and to text in order to create a solution. I could easily relate to some of the things you were saying because of because of the knowledge I have on design thinking. So here's my question: is product thinking the same thing as design? Is product management the same thing as design thinking, or is design thinking an application that is involved in product management?
Yeah, so I would say it's definitely more of the second. Design thinking would actually help you build better product, right? So there's lots of tools that we can use, like for example, using Scrum for project management is a tool, right? It's like a framework that helps you better manage your project. It's the same way design thinking would actually help you better empathize, better understand your customers to help you build the best product or the best solution for them. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, it does. It does. So
Yeah.
It's safe to say that design thinking is a key for product management, yes?
Yes, I would say there are different ways to understand and empathize with customers. So I basically presented the jobs to be done framework, which is basically a way to understand what customers really are trying to do. Design thinking could be an extension of that, right? Or it could be a separate way of thinking of customer needs, right? So, or managing the process of fulfilling customer needs, right? Because I think you mentioned the 5 stages. So I would say understanding design thinking would definitely help you be a better product manager. You can basically pick and choose what's best from multiple different frameworks. The goal is basically to build the best product for customers.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So again, like I said at the very beginning, not everyone studying product management will be a product manager or is trying to be a product manager. You could be a CEO, like someone who's a CEO trying to learn how to be a better product for your customers. Product management is not going to teach you finance. It's not going to teach you how to get funding for your startup. It's not going to teach you how to be a people manager, right? But it would definitely help you build better products for your customers. So yeah, I think this class would definitely be useful, not just for people who are trying to be product managers, but people, doing other stuff as well. Ijoma.
Okay. Hi, thank you. So my question is from the previous session. I should have asked that earlier. It was when you were talking about the development life cycle, and you mentioned the launch phase. You said that's when we're supposed to start talking to legal to see if what we've developed, we're not going against any laws and stuff like that, GDPR and the rest of it. So I was thinking, isn't that like supposed to come before we built? Because so let's say we've built something already and we didn't take cognizance of certain laws or things and we've gone against some of them. Wouldn't that be like wasted resources and then having to go back in the case whereby legal says, okay, you've contravened some laws and you can't do this?
Yeah, so that's absolutely correct. You do need to engage your stakeholders. You need to basically recognize the stakeholders that you need to work with at the different stages. And that includes the conception stage. For example, at Microsoft, whenever we're trying to work on certain like new projects or programs, we like to call them, we have to involve legal. Depending on what type of program it is, we have to involve legal. So yes, you're absolutely right. Definitely don't wait until the last minute to start working with marketing. Doesn't make any sense because you need to know the marketing, like how does this fit within the whole overall marketing strategy of your organization? Same with legal, right? So yeah, you should definitely involve them. But in the launch phase, before you launch, one of the key activities would be to sit with legal and actually go through the whole checklist and be like, everything is good, right? Because at the conception phase, you don't have all the features built, you don't have everything built, you don't have everything defined yet. But by the time you're about to launch, everything is built. So legal, they can actually see everything and be like, oh yeah, what you told me during conception, that's not what you built. Like you just added a whole bunch of stuff. You need to fix this. That's why it's important in that phase.
Okay.
Same with yeah, exactly. Chichinan,
Sorry, please. I have one more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So UX and PM, I see that there's a lot of, it's almost no difference. So I want to know if there's an actual difference. So because what they do is almost similar. Is there a difference between being a UX designer and then being a PM?
Yeah,
or
so
business analyst?
So there's a huge difference. They're very, very different because everything that I said, except for the last part, applies to PM, but not UX designer, right? UX designer helps you understand user wants and user experience, and how user should interact with your product, and exactly user research. UX would help you do that, but managing the project, UX designers don't manage. They don't tell developers what to do. They don't manage. They don't project manage the development of the product. They don't. They don't have to present to. Generally, they don't have to present to investors or to senior management. They don't have to understand the technology that these developers using to build. They probably don't even have to work with marketing, right? That's all the PM's job.
Right, but also the aspect where you said you don't have to understand the technology, is that correct? Because I know if your UX designer wants to design something, they probably need to understand a bit of coding, so to know what they're designing for the web developer or something like that.
Yeah, so when you become an experienced UX designer, when developers tell 1,000 times that we can't do this, at that point, generally you would know that, okay, I probably shouldn't design stuff this way. So yes, it is important, but understanding technology is more important for the PM because he's the one that needs to prioritize. You can have a really good feature, but if he doesn't understand the technical requirements or how much time it would take to build this feature, he's not a good PM, right? But the designer, that's why you have the PM to look at the designer's work. And that's why I said the designer is best friends with the PM because they work closer together than the PM works with the developer. Because with the designer can design a whole bunch of stuff, but PM will be there sitting right next to them and telling them, oh, like, no, you can't, like, this is going to take too long. Like, you can't design it this way, all that kind of stuff. So it's the PM's responsibility to make sure that what the designer is designing is not difficult to build. But obviously, as an experienced designer over time, you would know after being told no 10,000 times that maybe I shouldn't design this way.
Okay, thank you. That was good. Thanks.
Who's Chinaya, right?
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Ayo. Interested and very eye-opening masterclass today. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you. So my question actually was supposed to be taken in the first session, so permit me to take it a bit back. So my question is this: as I'm a project manager currently, but I do work in the tech space. I'm just wondering. So if I work in the social development space, so if one wants to pivot into product management, how will that pivot happen? Because I feel that there's a lot of tech things that need to be learned and others. How is that going to happen, and what will be your suggestion about that?
Yeah, so my answer basically is you cannot be a tech product manager without knowing tech. That's just like you're managing project, managing developers, you're responsible for tech products, you have to know tech. So basically, like I said, there's different backgrounds for people coming into product management, and different people have different strength. If you're a business person and you don't know tech, you would bring your business strength, but you need to learn tech. The same thing with a product manager. Product manager will be really good at working with the developers to deliver certain features within a certain amount of time, but they might not really be good at prioritizing feature or understanding customer needs. So that's something you have to learn. So yeah, I would say coming from a different background, if you're not a tech person, even a computer science person needs to understand UX. You need to understand, like, you have to go and learn how to deal with customers, how to communicate with stakeholders. There's a lot of things developers have to learn. So everyone trying to do PM would have to learn something new to be a tech PM. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So just to bring in a bit of background. So when you're talking about like stakeholder management and customer, understanding your customers, and then how to and all those things that you just mentioned, some of those things are still things that one do as a project manager, that I do as a project manager. Let me use myself as an example. And
stakeholder management is definitely very important for project manager, but not defining what exactly gets built to some extent. I think so. I think what I'm just trying to say is, as a project manager, definitely a lot of your skills will be helpful, right? But you still need to learn the tech stuff.
Oh, okay.
You have an advantage, right? So for example, I came from a project manager background, and also obviously I knew data, I learned data, but I had to learn data. Like, I studied data science, did a master's in data science to learn more about tech and understand data, right? So I went from being a project manager to doing a master's degree while I learned about tech before I could do PM, right? So some PM roles don't require a lot of tech skills, some do, right? A lot of the big tech companies would require you to have some tech skills, but some PMs don't have to have as much tech skills. But in general, eventually you would want to learn, because you can't effectively lead a product team without knowing tech. To some extent, you don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to know how to build like actually code software products, but you need to understand tech.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So if do you have a question? Before I actually take that one, I know people probably have to leave now. I just want to quickly go over. I'll take my questions after. But basically, the assignment. So today I talked about product management, and I talked about. Oops, I'll share my screen. Today I talked about product management and how to understand user needs, and how to, basically determine how to build products that people actually need. So I would ask everyone just, to spend some time to think of a problem you would like to solve, right? Think of a problem, define the problem. It has to be something that requires a software solution, and then basically go through the conceive phase, which is basically the first phase. So, if you have some time, just understand, this is a problem that I see that I would like to build a software solution to solve that problem. So you can use the jobs to be done concept to, basically think about what people actually want. There's a lot of different things you can take. Basically, you can do some research if you want to. Just basically, the idea is to complete the conceive phase, which is the high level understanding of exactly, what the problem is, why you want to solve it, why it's important, and just have that ready for the next class. And then the next class, I will basically define how to brainstorm solutions to the problem. That will be one of the first things that we do in the next class. And then we're going to go through the process of actually doing that, taking the problem that you define and actually brainstorming some solutions to that problem. Yeah, and that's it for me today. Is there anything else we'd like to add before everyone starts leaving? Is there anything else before we leave? Adela, I'm not sure if this is something you wanted to say before everyone leaves. So, Dr. Adela.
Dr. Adiola is line. This is Sarvaja here on behalf of Stemhope Foundation. Thank you all for attending today's session. We will be sending out an email with the presentation slides as well as the survey and such. And we will also have the assignment for next week attached to that email. And we will also upload this session onto our YouTube channel within the next 3 to 4 days. So keep an eye out on that. Thank you so much and see you all next week.